Hey everybody, back here again. Just wanted to give you guys a bit of an update. So I'm gonna be doing the Q&A today. Was planning on doing it at a different time and being able to have my buddy Wyatt come and help me shoot this and that, but with COVID going on and just a lot of other things, it's not gonna work out quite that way. So I figured, I usually am in my car when I talk to you guys. So we'll do the Q&A here because I've had a lot of questions and I do read the comments. Don't always have time to get back to them. Sometimes I'm, studying, doing some other things, and sometimes I just forget, which is a lot of the time. But I'm gonna kind of go through some of the big ones that people have been asking from week 1 all the way up to the weeks 9 and 10 video. Got them here on my phone because, like I said, I can be forgetful sometimes. And there's a lot of stuff in here. The first question is from Christian. And he says, can you explain explain how your interview went and what was required of you? So the interview process was pretty straightforward. I applied online, got an email back, and then got a call to say, hey, we'd like to set up an interview time. So came in. At that time, I was living out in Marion, so drove from Marion down to Lyft and went in. Basically, it's kind of, just get to know you interview and, what interests you in aviation, stuff like that. So, it's pretty simple. Don't want to spoil it too much because, it's not an interview. If you prepare for every eventuality, kind of have some fluidity there. But just be yourself. That's the best advice I can give. And then from there, going into the testing, the compass test. I've had a lot of people asking me about that. Rios asks, was there mostly algebra and ratios? It's been a while since I've taken the assessment, but from what I remember, a lot of it is just multiplication, division, adding, subtracting, and then knowing, there is sort of an algebraic feel to it, to find, a certain answer. I can't remember right off the top of my head any of those questions, but there is, I guess, a little bit of algebra involved, and also making sure units, keeping units in the right order and stuff like that. Yeah, I was a music student for about 4 years, so I hadn't touched math in a long time, and I still passed it and did pretty well, so it's not the end of the world. But yeah, and if if other people have some questions on preparing for that, I can go into into depth a little bit more on that. So all right, so this question comes from Adam, and it's also part of the compass test. So if I remember correctly, you can use a calculator. They do give you pencil and paper to write things down on, and that. And he's asking what other sections are on the test. So there's some memory things to see how well you can memorize items in sequence. There is also hand-eye coordination, like I said earlier. And then one other thing I forgot to mention is there is a portion on direction finding. So if you're facing this direction, you have an arrow pointing this way, what direction are you pointing to, and stuff like that. So it's kind of hard to explain, but that's kind of the best I can do right now. All right, so this next question comes from Walter, and so he's asking about how much it costs a month at Lyft. So it's not a monthly fee. It is a flat fee. So you pay for the rating to get the certificate, And you know, I don't know what all of those breakdowns are. I think Lyft does have that posted somewhere. But you know, that's also going to be changing, you know, as economy changes, stuff like that. So I know whatever I say is probably going to be outdated by the time everyone's watching this. So right now, I just paid for my private license portion, and so that's you know, all I have to pay. And right now, I know it's taking longer to get through just because of a lot of weather and stuff like that. So it should have been 2 months. It's taking longer than that. But it's not a monthly fee. It's a, you know, one time upfront fee. So that's how that works. So the next question is from Corey, and he's asking about financing through Lyft. So you can either pay, you know, every certificate, basically. So you can pay for the PPL, and then you can pay for getting your IFAR and commercial multi-engine. The route I took was getting a loan through a company that Lyft uses. And the way it worked for me was, you know, I'm basically doing the full amount to go to Lyft, and they are breaking up those payments to Lyft. So, you know, they have you sign some papers one, you know, your first week for the contract there. And I can't remember exactly all of it. If I remember correctly, the interest is deferred until you complete your training, and then you start paying. And that this is where I would say it would be more helpful to talk to a recruiter. They know a little bit more about that. And I will say that if anyone has, you know, some other questions on something that I say here, I am still hoping to talk to one of the recruiters at Lyft to get some things going. But again, with COVID being out, it's a lot harder to do an interview, do something face to face. So still kind of working out something else that we can do to get some more information out to you guys. All right, so the next question is from Walter, and he says, what kind of jobs fit well with your class schedule? So I know there are some students that they do, they're doing, you know, the serving industry, they're servers and stuff like that. I personally, I work at FedEx, FedEx Freight, so I work on a forklift, and I used to work from 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. When I started at Lyft, it was really hard on my schedule. I wasn't getting enough sleep while I was at work, so I made sure I was rested for Lyft and that, but I was just having issues transitioning over. So FedEx was great. Talked to them about switching my shift. I was able to move to a 7 to 1 a.m. shift, which was a lot better for me. So having that flexibility was great. They're also allowing me to take time off when I have to do night flights and stuff like that. So, so I've been really lucky with them. I can't really speak for anything else. I will say that there is a lot of studying to do outside of Lyft. So if you have a job that you're going to be working, you know, consistent 8 hours, you know, it's really going to come down to time management and stuff like that. So it's, you know, it's harder. I know I've had a couple people asking me about, you know, I'm a nurse, you know, I can't really speak to that profession and how transitioning in would work. But there is a lot of stuff to get done in a short amount of time with it being an accelerated program. So I would say just, you know, be a little cautious on hours and stuff like that, and just make sure you're retaining everything that you need when going through the online courses, and not just blowing through it and you know, kind of cramming it, and then by the time you move on, you kind of lose some of the stuff that you've gone over. So, you know, that's my situation with work. So it hasn't been too big of an issue. The bigger issue will probably come with flying, night flights, and that. But you know, we'll come to that as it happens. So next question comes from Jasmine, and she's asking about working at FedEx and how many times a week I fly. So at the beginning, I was flying about 4 days a week. whenever you can get up, as long as you're passing your flights, you're going to be moving on to the next flight basically right away. So it's quick succession. So there was sometimes I was flying 5 times a week. You'll have a ground lesson in there every once in a while. So those things also come into play. But yeah, a lot of flying and that. So it really, keeps you moving, and it's good because you're in the plane, and it helps you to not forget as much, especially when you're really getting into flying for the first time and that. So that, I hope that answers that question. All right, so I got another question here from Mark, asking just about time management and how I manage my time. So in the beginning, I was spending probably about 3 hours working on the online assessments. So that would come with, I'd have a flight. Usually I would study right after my flights, kind of debrief even more the things that have been going on in the flight. Other than that, it's kind of up to you what your study style is, study habits. I've gone to Starbucks a couple times, studied just at home, because I find that if I'm at home in my room on my computer, there's lots of other distractions that can come up. And stuff like that. So it really depends on how focused you can be. So my days mostly consisted of flying, studying, and then from there transitioning to FedEx, then sleeping, getting back up, flying, studying, and a couple naps in between, maybe. But so it really depends on where you're at and how much you need to study on a certain subject to understand it. Some things clicked with me right away. Other things took a little bit longer to process through and make stick. So that's kind of my routine for studying and that. Okay, so this next question's from My Ninja Muffin Army. Great name. And he asks just basically, how long did it take for Lyft to get back to me? I want to say, I think it was about a week. That's going to vary for everyone depending on when you apply. I know they have an automated system that reaches out to people with the initial email, and especially now with COVID-19, there's a lot of stuff going on. So there's kind of a hold on some things. So it really depends, I think, on volume and that. I would say that's also more of a recruiter question, but I figured I'd just kind of touch on it a little bit, because, I'm not directly tied to them, so I can't really give you a definitive answer on that. But I know when I did my interviews and that, they try to do, I think, go through a cycle every 2 weeks. All right, so next question is from JSR Radio, and he's asking about difference in flight schools compared to Lyft. I can't really speak to that. I didn't look at too many just because Lyft was my primary since I was already in Indiana. Worked out well for me. Wasn't gonna have to move anywhere in that. But I do think Lyft is great. I enjoy the program, and because it is accelerated, so you're getting a lot done in a short amount of time, which if you can hit everything perfectly, you get it done in those 2 months, which I do think is doable. You're gonna complete it faster than other places. I know. I'll pull it up here. Because Mike also asked the pace of the program compared to ATP. So it is going to be quicker. I had a buddy that tried going through ATP, and he ended up not finishing it. Just wasn't really a good fit for him. But I do know that their pace seems to be slower than Lyft. And I will say that Lyft, it is a quick pace. There is a lot to get through in that short amount of time. I know the first, I think about 3 weeks were really quick before weather hit and just slowed that pace down. And that kind of made it harder to to keep up with that pace because I was getting through all the ground lessons already and stuff like that. And then it just kind of delayed my flying, which was, I think, the harder thing, coming in and, you know, not flying as much. You get rusty faster when you've only flown a plane maybe 5 times compared to if you've flown a plane 100 times. So that's I think I answered the question with pace and that. So it is fast, and then compared to other schools, I will say I think it is faster than most. There are I think some newer flight schools that are coming up. I'm not exactly sure on their type of program, but you know, I chose Lyft because of location. It was convenient for me, and that's kind of my story. All right, so I have another question from Jasmine, just asking about how many asking how many stage checks there are. Say that 3 times fast. Before the private pilot check ride. So at Lyft there are 3. So there's 3 stages. The first stage is the longest, getting you acquainted with the airplane. Second stage is a little bit shorter. That gets into cross-country flying. And then the third stage is solo flying in that. So right now I am stuck at the stage 2 check because of COVID. Haven't been able to do my actual flight past my oral. But now it's just the waiting game. So there are 3 stage checks, and then the third stage check is, we call it end of course. And then from there, once you pass that, then you go on to your actual stage with an FAA examiner. All right, so this other question comes from Mike, and he's asking, if you fly as much as possible, don't do anything else but Lyft, how many months can you expect to get to CFI starting at 0? That's one I can't really, you know, tell you. Everybody's different. It all depends on, you know, one, weather. I came in September, got hit with a lot of bad weather in end of October, most of November, some in December, and then January, another hit with weather into February. So, you know, it really depends on where you come in, I think, and, you know, just how lucky you are sometimes. But, you know, if you get everything done, I know, I think Lyft says it's about a year to get to CFI. That's doable. And then I know they say, yes, 2 months for private, 2 months for instrument. I know those off the top of my head, can't remember what the other ones are in the breakdown, but I know some people have gotten through CFI faster, but I know some people have gotten through commercial faster. But for the first 2, it's pretty rigid on what you're doing in that. So you're really working with your instructor to get through things. So, you know, I would say about a year, possibly, you know, maybe a month or 2 shorter. That's my opinion. Don't take my word for it. But like I said, it all comes down to weather, how much you fly, and consistency, and also not unsatting on stage checks and stuff like that, which is one of the issues I had in that first stage. So learn from that. That's why I'm doing this. So hopefully you guys can you know, get through things pretty well. And I think that's all the questions I have. If you guys have any more, you know, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I do see them. I appreciate the support from you guys and everything. It means a lot to me. This is why I, you know, started this channel, was to help other people, you know, get a better understanding of Lyft and, you know, see what it's like getting through Lyft. If you guys, you know, found this video helpful, appreciate you getting a thumbs up on that button down there. Bell notification, just so that you guys know when I get these new videos out. Trying to be a little bit more consistent, but with everything with COVID, it's kind of delaying a lot of things. But hopefully we'll get things going. So I'll catch you guys later. Hey everybody, I'll redo this one again, Wyatt. You know, that's kind of, oh gosh, first part was good. So both, but so, yeah, this camera's getting hot, Wyatt. Oh, might have to take a break here, Wyatt. This thing is hot.